The 1995 Ford Mustang SVT COBRA R is here in Forza Horizon 5, and for the time being at least, it's the final new car coming to this game, unless Forza surprise us with some new content later in the year. I'm going to quickly show you how to get this thing, what's going on with Backstage Pass and things like that. Then we'll go back to the festival, see what upgrades are available, and whether they're the same as they were back in Horizon 3, where this car was also seen, and then we'll take it for some racing. Like most of the previous cars, this final vehicle is obtainable by getting 20 points in this week's festival playlist, which I've done by doing the trial, the event lab, treasure hunt, photo challenge, and the monthly rivals at the beginning of the series. We did get one other new car this series, the Challenger, last week, and then we've got the Pro Stock and GTO returning. Before we vote for previous playlists to return in future, this is the final new one. If, however, you don't get this car before next Thursday at the time this video goes out, you'll have to buy it on the auction house unless it appears in the Backstage Pass. So, they added the Lincoln Continental and the Mustang Dark Horse last week, and this week we can vote for either the Super Bee and the F-150 or the Firebird and the Chevy. I think I slightly prefer the Super Bee to the Firebird, so let's go with that. Eventually, though, the Mustang might end up in here and might end up in the Backstage. Back to the newly added Mustang then, the final new car in Horizon 5. Probably. It's not actually new to the Horizon series, like I briefly touched on before we looked at the playlist. It was last seen in Horizon 3, and had some interesting body modifications, which we'll see if they are the same when we go back to the festival. Here in Horizon 5, it has 300 horsepower, 495 newton-meters of torque, weighs just under 1.5 tons, and is B-Class 625 from standard. I do think, though, that this is a slightly disappointing final car to add to the game, not just because it's come forward from Horizon 3 rather than being brand new, but also I just don't particularly like this generation of Mustang. I like the sort of classic ones because they're just cool, and the new ones because, well, they're pretty fast. But these kind of middle ones, they're not particularly good looking, and they're not particularly quick. I can only assume SVT stands for Slow Vehicle Team. But yeah, the kind of 80s and 90s and early 2000s Mustangs I don't particularly like, and we already have some sort of similar era ones in the game, and like I say, it's not actually brand new to Forza, so it's slightly disappointing, but there we go. We did also notice on closer inspection of this car that for some reason the left exhaust pipe is chrome and the right exhaust pipe is black. Not quite sure how that mistake's got in, or whether that was also in Horizon 3, but Forza sort of things, I guess. Quickly before we headed back to the festival, though, we drag raced it against a couple of fairly similar era Mustangs, both of which ended up being faster. So let's head on back to the festival and see what options are available for it. First of all, the manufacturer paint options are exactly the same as Horizon 3. There is white, and that's it. There's no advanced painting options, apart from for the wheels, which I suppose is something new over that game, but I don't know why you'd want to do that. So let's leave it white for now. Over in the upgrade shop, there are some engine swap options. There's a 6.2 V8, 6.7 V8 diesel, 8.9 V8, 7.7 V12, and 8.4 V10. So there's quite a few options there. Not sure if that's the same as Horizon 3. I think it's more than there were in that game. There's also an all-wheel drive conversion, twin turbos, and a centrifugal supercharger. And, well, moving over to aero and appearance, you may remember these parts from Horizon 3, but there are several options. There's a Ford option to make it look kind of like a more standard Mustang. There's a sort of aftermarket one, and there's a Celine part. So there's several different looks you can go for, and that. So for the time being, let's put the Celine thing on, although it sort of doesn't quite fit properly. Similar for wings, there's a Ford wing, an aftermarket wing, a Celine wing, that, and a D wing. So let's put the Celine one on again. I think that's probably the best looking option, actually. Similar with the bumper, we've got a Ford one, which changes it from Mustang to Mustang GT. And also, weirdly, leaves a little gap below the rear lights. I don't really know why it does that, but all of the aftermarket things sort of leave that huge panel gap. It was exactly the same in Horizon 3, so I'm not sure whether that's just how they are. Anyway, let's go for the Celine one to match the other bits, but it is a bit weird how that gap's there. Same with the side, there's this aftermarket company and Celine. So let's again go with the Celine one. And there's some bonnet options. There's that one, the Ford one, the aftermarket-y one, the Celine one, and the sort of standard Forza ones, which are quite tall. Anyway, let's go with the Celine one to complete the look. Then you've got all of your usual tyre compounds, tyre width options, track width options, which will fill the arches a bit more, particularly at the back. That is quite a big difference. That, of course, you couldn't do in Horizon 3, so that's new. Standard sort of drivetrain options, standard platform and handling options, and all of the usual engine upgrades. At this point I went in search of B-Class Purist tunes. No tunes had been shared yet though, so I made my own. I went for the Celine kit, even with the non-fitting bumper at the back, but ended up with the car a little underpowered, still with less than 350 horsepower, which I wasn't actually terribly happy with. I think my main mistake here was attempting to fit upgraded tyres, took too much PI away, and then I couldn't get enough power into the car. To make up for the lack of power, I went and painted the car yellow, and then headed into Horizon Open. The first race was at the Playa Azul circuit, where the game kindly gave me a pole position start. In this first race I was pleasantly surprised by the car not driving completely terribly, and somehow I also managed to win. That though was the final race in the set, so we went straight into the next round. This time with not such good results. In the first race at the Aerodromo Sprint, the Mustang's lack of power meant I could only manage a third place finish. In the second race at the Bola Ocho circuit, the handling was nowhere near good enough, so I ended up in fourth. And in the final race at the Lookout circuit, I was violently killed by a Camaro. So although the Mustang struggled with top speed and tight corners, at more mixed tracks, the car felt reasonable to drive even with my below average setup applied. This made me think that with a decent tune, the car might actually be usable in B-Class. So the following morning I did once again go in search of B-Class tunes, finding purist options from the likes of Bard and Logic, opting for a Bard tune, which took the power to just over 400 horsepower. With a bit of blue paint applied, I headed back into some more races. I once again joined for the final race in the set, this time at the Copper Canyon Sprint. Here I was hit by just about every other car on the track. The Mustang was quick, but I didn't quite know where to brake and how it handled corners and stuff, so the handling-based cars kept absolutely sending it into the corners and pushing me out of the way, basically. Anyway, after a fairly hectic race, I should have taken a second place finish, but the Toyota ahead decided to block me on the final straight, so I ended up in third. As that was the end of a set of races, I of course went into another, starting at the Playa Azul circuit, where I quickly got up into second place and spent a lot of the race chasing down a Dino, before eventually getting past and taking the win. Next we were off to the San Juan Sprint, where I managed to get into the lead before the tight corner at the stadium and had a pretty perfect run to the finish, whilst chaos ensued behind me, giving the Mustang a second victory with this tune applied. And the final race was at the Gran Pantano Sprint, which, like the Copper Canyon, was complete carnage with cars pushing one another and sending it into some of the corners. By the final couple of bends, I found myself in a battle for second with that same Dino and with the GT86, managing to outhandle the Ferrari, and once again have a chance to pass the Toyota on the run to the finish line, and once again I was completely blocked on a straight and ended up in third. So that was that, and as I thought, with a decent tune applied, this car was actually pretty good and a lot of fun to drive. So for the first time in a while, I will actually be keeping this tune applied to the car. And that is going to do it for a look at what is probably the final car to ever come to Forza Horizon 5. It is a slightly disappointing choice for the final car, not just because it's an era of Mustang that I don't particularly like, it's just not all that exciting, and It's not a brand new to Horizon car coming forward from Horizon 3, so that's kind of slightly disappointing for the final car. It does though have some cool body kit customizations, even if they are exactly the same as they were in Horizon 3, and with a decent tune applied to it, it's quite good in B-Class. So it's not all that bad a car. I just feel like for the final vehicle, they could have added something a bit more exciting, but there we go. As ever, do let me know your thoughts on this brand new addition to Horizon 5, but for today's video that is going to be all, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next one very soon.